The Cyclops of Passion.
The times we find ourselves living in could be described as the mediated age.
Adjective, mediated, acting or brought about through an intervening agency.
Since the advent of the digital revolution, how we engage in, and in turn the way we redefine, the public sphere has been going through a rapid transformation.
Our sense of public self is no longer restricted to how we embody or present in the physical realm. In addition, simulacrum, an image or representation of someone or something, now forms much of how we view ourselves and function as a public person.
The features of our contemporary public mask are now heavily sculptured or curated, then presented via the agency of digital technology. With the role and place of social media in our everyday lives, we often engage with each other solely in the virtual realm.
Meeting, socialising, doing business, politicking, exhibiting, performing, learning, and exchanging ideas, etc.
Simulacra, plural, reacting with simulacra, then feeding back into our embodied lives. This process is repeated ad infinitum, creating complexity to our understanding of ourselves and being in the world. With our digital citizenship, the scale of the public territory we occupy has exponentially increased, and in so doing, our public selves take on a ghost-like quality, a mere apparition of who we are.
A social ecology that is dependent on the agency of technology and simulacra redefines the experience of being zoon politikon.
It makes for the recasting of being human, Homo sapien, to that of being Homo media, Homo the genus, media the species.
With this recasting, our sense of embodied self becomes altered, our perceptions, responses and behaviours
modified to accommodate an abstracted environment that consists solely of representations. This leads to whole new sets of herd behavioural patterns and the conditions of individual lived experience, changing the social political world that we all inhabit.
Any representation of a thing can never present the whole of a matter. That is especially the case with human affairs.
All a representation can do is present a designed, curated abstraction, subject to misinterpretation if the ciphers aren't shared between the producer and receiver.
In our everyday embodied lives, often our dealings with one another are subject to misunderstandings.
When only interacting via simulacra, the rate of misunderstandings is exponentially amplified. Perceptions are not equally shared amongst us. Not everyone possesses the same set of ciphers. The content becomes fraught. It is not fixed, and it will mean different things to different people. A social ecology that is solely based on simulacrum creates a culture where the unit of exchange between people becomes an exercise in ciphers and definitions.
A giant game of Chinese whispers. Objectivity or original intent may become lost in the confusion. At times, digital platforms become the battlefields of endless war, a contest around definitions and meaning.
The technology is governed by a single ruler, the algorithm. In mathematics and computer science, an algorithm is a finite sequence of well-defined, computer-implementable instructions, typically to solve a class of problems or to perform a computation. Algorithms are unambiguous specifications for performing calculations, data processing, automated reasoning, and other tasks.
Adhering to Newton's first law of motion, an object not affected by any force will continue indefinitely in a straight line.
Algorithms can only work linearly. Without this strict adherence to linear motion, computing would be impossible, and we simply would not be able to build or inhabit a digital realm.
Providing the habitat and means, algorithms are the flesh and bones that give life to Homo media.
In and by itself, the algorithm's task of calculation, data processing, etc. seem to provide a great tool for us to employ, and to put it simply, it is. But when placed in context, acting as an agency for social identity and interaction, algorithms can become problematic.
In social media, the tyranny of the algorithm plays to and entrenches our biases, shuttling us all along in a never-ending bespoke linear direction that is predetermined by our digital shadows.
The more we engage with the medium, the greater the reinforcement of our biases become. Our likes and our dislikes are factored in, and our personalized algorithms become our masters, steering us towards an infinite point of proclivity.
being led by our prejudices, what we receive, the information 24-hour news cycle, advertisements, political propaganda, etc., reinforces our opinions and fosters the diminishing of our capacity to practice empathy.
We tend to inhabit ghettos of like-minded souls who share similar or the same worldview, isolating ourselves from others that may see the world completely differently. The public sphere of the digital realm becomes like a series of neighborhoods, each with its particular character, and through our social networks we become like neighborhood gang members, displaying our colors, ready to do battle.
There is an ironic twist in the cold logic of mathematics facilitating the creation of a territory/place where our passions become our passports. Mirroring the building blocks of computer programming, the binary code, our simple likes or dislikes formulate the recipes that are our bespoke algorithms. Our habits and desires authenticate our digital citizenry. Where we travel and who we engage with in the vast space of the connected world, that is the net, depends on our feelings.
Passion dictates the character of our digital identity, simulacrum, feeding back into our embodied lives, impacting on the relationships, worldview and politics we hold. Our feelings are leading us to places whereof the capacity to balance out emotion with reason is getting lost. Individually and collectively, we are running the risk of becoming a type of one-eyed monster, a Cyclops of Passion.
All monsters carry a unique set of characteristics that express their grotesqueness, and the Cyclops of Passion is no different.
With an imbalance brought about by the playing out of a tension between the primary human drives of Eros and Thanatos, minus the third primary drive of Psyche, keeping them in check or balance, the very definition of psychosis, the Cyclops of Passion thinks and behaves solely in a reactive manner.
Driven by the dominance of feelings, the capacity for reflective thinking diminishes. Hijacked by the immediate needs of emotion, reason takes a backseat and the capacity for objective thinking wanes.
Anecdotally, take note of how often people, when asked a question, reply with the preface, "I feel," rather than "I think." Increasing in popularity, this commonly used phrase is very telling.
When non-reflective critical thought is abandoned and replaced by reactive thought, our actions and behaviour take on a careless character, where consequences are seldom considered. Limited reasoning to only amplify or reinforce our felt reaction is at best misguided or at worst psychotic in behaviour.
To not employ reasoning to bring contextual analysis to a matter before us means that our understanding becomes narrow and a state of willful ignorance takes hold.
Being human, at times we are all prone to metamorphose into the Cyclops of Passion. This is a universal condition that none of us can escape.
Thankfully, for most of us, this state doesn't last for long periods. We achieve equilibrium and get on with a productive life. However, given the right circumstances, sustaining a state of equilibrium can be a challenge. This is especially the case when, as Zoon Politikon, we fall under the influence of the herd and succumb to mass hysteria.
All of us know the power of mass crowds. When we go to a large sporting event, music contest, or large street demonstration, we get swept up in the collective expression of passion. It can be intoxicating to be part of a large crowd fixated on a singular point of focus, achieving a state of unity and collective identity. A feedback loop takes hold where emotions are expressed and then reinforced by the mirroring of shared emotional expression from the crowd, heightening the intensity of the experience.
This group dynamic need not always be viewed as negative. It can be extremely positive and enrich the lived experience of all involved. But mass hysteria can also be extremely negative. The mob can do terrible things to others and cause incredibly destructive injury to society at large. When this potentially malevolent force of the mob is fed into politics, either inadvertently or advertently, the outcomes are usually dire for sections or whole of the society.
History clearly illustrates time and again. Think the terror of the French Revolution, Russian Revolution, Nazi Germany, etc. That when the malevolent force of mass hysteria is unleashed, the mayhem, bloodshed and utter destruction knows no limits.
The social ecology of the digital realm and its inhabitant Homo media create the perfect petri dish for growing a culture that induces mass hysteria. The viral spreading of posts, tweets and memes that may contain misinformation, mistruths, propaganda, calls for action, expressions of hate, etc. can whip up a mob in next to no time. The bespoke algorithms playing into our inherent and established biases direct us towards a state of myopia.
The simple physical act of the click or swipe becomes an embodied expression of our tendency for reactive thinking, echoing our likes and dislikes, leading us further and further away from reflective and considered thought.
The social networks that we form ensure that we are all corralled into social ghettos where otherness is all but non-existent. How quick we can form into righteous mobs driven by our feelings of outrage, easily manipulated by others, or the sheer power of crowd dynamics.
Before we are even aware, we can morph into a Cyclops of Passion and join the stampede, rushing full steam ahead and not giving a damn about the consequences.
The phenomenon of the stampeding is not self-contained in the digital realm. It is creeping into the embodied world, affecting our prosaic lives. Human relationships, the way we conduct business, our culture, and especially our politics, is being distorted by the stampede.
Our reality is being warped to align with narratives generated within the hall of mirrors that is social media.
The tyranny of the algorithm selects what stories we see and hear. Reactive thinking and behaviour is now a common driving force to be reckoned with, and society is being held captive by our passions. Welcome to the mediated age, where the Cyclops of Passion reigns supreme.
Passion reigns supreme.